Hello, friends. You're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never believed in ghosts or curses until that night in the summer of 2023. My name is Jordan Hayes, and I was just a regular guy from Portland, Oregon, working as a software developer for a startup downtown. Life was predictable. Coding by day, Netflix by night, occasional hikes in the Columbia River Gorge. But when my old college buddy Mike Thompson texted me about a house party at his uncle's place in the outskirts of Salem, I figured it was time to shake things up. Epic bash, bro, his message read. Old mansion, free booze, hot crowd from OSU. You in? I hadn't seen Mike since our days at Oregon State University, where we bonded over late-night cram sessions and frat parties. How could I say no? The drive down from Portland took about an hour on a 5 South, the kind of scenic route that lulls you into complacency with rolling hills and pine forests blurring past. Salem's known for its cherry blossoms and state capital, but Mike's uncle's house was tucked away in the rural fringes, near Silver Falls State Park. The address led me to a winding gravel road off Highway 22, flanked by overgrown blackberry bushes and ancient oaks that seemed to whisper warnings in the wind. As my Toyota Camry bumped along, I chuckled at my overactive imagination. It was just a party, right? The house itself was a relic, a sprawling Victorian mansion built in the late 1800s, according to Mike's quick backstory over the phone. His uncle, Robert Thompson, had inherited it from some distant relative a few years back. Robert was a reclusive type, a retired history professor from Willamette University who rarely left the place. Mike said the old man was out of town for a conference in Seattle, leaving the keys with him for the weekend. Perfect spot for a rager, Mike had laughed. Creepy vibes, but that's half the fun. I arrived around 8 p.m. as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple. Cars were already parked haphazardly on the lawn, a mix of beat-up Jeeps, shiny Audis, and a few electric Teslas from the tech crowd. Music thumped from inside, a bass-heavy remix of some top 40 hit. I grabbed my six-pack of craft IPAs from the trunk and headed up the creaky wooden steps to the wraparound porch. The front door was ajar, spilling warm light and laughter into the cooling evening air. Inside, the place was a time capsule. High ceilings with ornate crown molding, faded wallpaper peeling at the edges, and antique furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. About 30 people milled around, mostly in their 20s. College kids from OSU, a few locals from Salem, and some Portland transplants like me. Mike spotted me immediately, his broad shoulders cutting through the crowd as he bear-hugged me. Jordan! Man, you made it! Grab a drink. Kegs in the kitchen. We caught up over red Solo cups filled with cheap beer. Mike introduced me to his girlfriend, Sarah Jenkins, a bubbly nursing student from Eugene with freckles and an infectious smile. There was also Tyler Ramirez, a former roommate turned graphic designer, and a group of girls from a sorority, Emma, Lily, and Brooke, all giggling about some TikTok trend. The party ramped up quickly. Beer pong in the dining room, a makeshift dance floor in the parlor, and someone blasting playlists from a Bluetooth speaker. I relaxed, chatting with strangers about everything from the latest Marvel movie to the wildfires that had scorched parts of the Cascades the previous year. But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake a subtle unease. The house felt off. Drafts whispered through rooms despite closed windows, and shadows seemed to linger longer than they should in the corners. During a lull, Mike pulled me aside to the study, a dimly lit room lined with dusty bookshelves. Check this out, he said, handing me an old leather-bound journal he'd found earlier. Uncle Rob's got some wild family history here. Flipping through the yellowed pages, I read entries from the 1920s. The mansion, originally called Hawthorne Manor, was built by Elias Hawthorne, a wealthy lumber baron from Massachusetts, who moved west during the timber boom. But tragedy struck in 1927. Elias's wife, Abigail, threw a lavish party to celebrate their anniversary. According to the journal, written by Elias himself, guests reported strange occurrences that night. Whispers in empty rooms, glasses shattering on their own, and a chilling fog that rolled in from nowhere. By morning, Abigail was found dead in the attic. Her neck snapped as if from a fall, though no one heard a thing. Elias claimed it was an accident, but rumors swirled of a curse tied to the land. Something about Native American burial grounds disturbed during construction. The journal ended abruptly with Elias noting, "The house remembers. It always remembers." I laughed it off. "Dude, this is straight out of a horror flick. Your uncle probably wrote this as a prank." Mike shrugged, but his eyes darted nervously. "Maybe, but Sarah swears she heard footsteps upstairs earlier and no one's up there." We returned to the party, but the seed of doubt was planted. Around midnight, things got weirder. The music glitched, skipping like a scratched record, even though it was digital. Lights flickered and a cold breeze swept through, knocking over a vase in the hallway. People chalked it up to faulty wiring in the old house, but I noticed Sarah rubbing her arms, her face pale. "Jordan, did you feel that? It's like someone's watching us." Trying to play it cool, I suggested a game to lighten the mood. Truth or dare, classic party fodder. We gathered in the living room, a circle of about 15 people on the threadbare Persian rug. Tyler went first, daring Emma to chug a beer, which she did to cheers. Then it was my turn. "Truth," I said, not feeling adventurous. Lily leaned in, her eyes sparkling mischievously. "What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?" I paused, then shared a lame story about getting lost hiking in the Tillamook forest. But as I spoke, a door upstairs creaked open on its own. Everyone froze. "Probably the wind," Mike muttered, but his voice wavered. Brooke volunteered next, choosing dare. Sarah dared her to explore the attic alone for 5 minutes. "Come on, that's where the ghost lady died, right?" Brooke teased, referencing the journal we'd all skimmed by now. She grabbed a flashlight from her purse and headed up the grand staircase, her laughter echoing back. We timed her on a phone. 1 minute. 2. At 3 minutes, a faint thump sounded from above, like something heavy dropping. "Brooke?" Emma called up. No answer. 4 minutes. Another thump, followed by a muffled giggle. We relaxed a bit, assuming she was messing with us. 5 minutes passed. Silence. Tyler stood. "Okay, joke's over. Let's get her." Mike, Sarah, and I followed him up. The staircase groaned under our weight, each step amplifying the party's distant hum below. The attic door at the end of the hallway was cracked open, a sliver of darkness beyond. "Brooke, you win. Come out," Sarah said, pushing it wider. The attic was a cavern of forgotten relics, trunks, mannequins draped in moth-eaten dresses, and cobweb-shrouded mirrors. Our flashlights cut through the dust, revealing Brooke slumped against a wall, her eyes wide open, staring blankly. No blood, no marks, just still. Tyler rushed to her, shaking her shoulder. "Brooke, wake up!" She didn't. Sarah checked her pulse, her nursing training kicking in. She's not breathing. "Oh God, call 911!" Panic erupted. Mike fumbled for his phone, but there was no signal, typical in these rural pockets. "The landline downstairs," I yelled. As we turned to leave, the attic door slammed shut with a force that rattled the frame. We pounded on it, but it wouldn't budge, as if barred from the outside. "What the hell?" Tyler gasped. In the dim light, shadows danced unnaturally, coalescing into shapes that resembled figures from old photographs I'd seen in the journal. Elias and Abigail, their faces twisted in agony. Sarah screamed as a whisper filled the air, faint but unmistakable. "The house remembers." It grew louder, echoing from the walls, accompanied by the sound of footsteps circling us. I backed against a trunk, my heart pounding. The temperature plummeted, our breaths visible in the air. Desperation fueled us. Tyler rammed the door with his shoulder, cracking the wood. We burst through, tumbling into the hallway. Downstairs, the party had devolved into chaos, people shouting about locked doors and windows that wouldn't open. The music had stopped, replaced by a low rhythmic hum like distant chanting. We herded everyone to the front door, but it was sealed shut, the knob ice cold. "Break a window!" Mike shouted. Tyler grabbed a chair and swung at the parlor pane, but the glass didn't shatter. It rippled like water, then reformed. That's when the real horror began. One by one, guests started vanishing. Emma was there 1 second, laughing nervously. The next she was gone, a faint scream echoing from the basement. Lily clutched my arm. Jordan, what's happening? I remembered the journal's final entry. To escape, confront the past. Grabbing Mike, I dragged him back to the study. The backstory. Elias buried something here. We need to find it. Rifling through drawers, we found a hidden compartment in the desk. Inside was a small rusted box containing a Native American artifact, a carved stone totem, cracked and stained. The journal mentioned Elias stealing it from a local tribe's sacred site, cursing the land. As whispers grew to roars, shadows clawing at the edges of the room, I smashed the totem against the floor. A deafening crack split the air, like thunder inside the house. The lights surged, doors flew open, and a gust of wind howled through, carrying away the oppressive chill. We bolted outside, piling into cars as sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have gotten signal. Looking back, the mansion stood silent, its windows like empty eyes. The police ruled Brooke's death a heart attack, blaming bad drugs or alcohol. Others dismissed the night as mass hysteria from spiked punch. But Mike, Sarah, Tyler, and I know the truth. The house remembered, and it let us go. Barely. I moved back to Portland, vowing never to attend another house party. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I hear whispers, and I wonder if it truly let us go. Story 2. I never thought a simple invitation to a house party could unravel my life like this. It was the summer of 2024, and I was back in my hometown of Maplewood, New Jersey, after graduating from Rutgers. My name's Alex Thompson, and I'd spent the last 4 years buried in computer science textbooks, dreaming of Silicon Valley jobs. But that June, I was crashing at my parents' place, job hunting and reconnecting with old high school buddies. That's when Jake Ramirez texted me about the party. Jake and I had been tight since freshman year at Maplewood High. He was the guy who always threw epic bashes, nothing too wild, just good music, cheap beer, and stories that lasted until dawn. This time, it was at his uncle's old Victorian house on Elm Street, the one that had been empty for years after his uncle passed away from a heart attack. Jake said he'd inherited it and was fixing it up to flip. Dude, it's huge. Perfect for a reunion. Bring whoever, but keep it chill. No drama. I hesitated at first. The house had a weird reputation. Back in the 90s, it was owned by the Hargrove family. Rumor had it that during a New Year's Eve party in 1995, something went wrong. The details were fuzzy, local gossip about a fire or a fight, but the Hargroves sold it quick and moved to Florida. Kids used to dare each other to sneak in, claiming they heard whispers or saw shadows. I chalked it up to urban legends, the kind that every small town has. Besides, Jake laughed it off when I mentioned it. Ghost stories for tourists, man. Come on, Emily's gonna be there. Emily Carter, my high school crush. We dated briefly senior year, but college pulled us apart. She was back in town too, working as a barista at the local Starbucks while figuring out her graphic design career. The thought of seeing her again sealed the deal. I grabbed a 6-pack of Bud Light and drove over around 8 p.m. on a Friday night. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows over the manicured lawns of Elm Street. The house loomed at the end of the block, its faded blue paint peeling like old skin, wraparound porch sagging under neglected flower boxes. But Jake had strung up fairy lights, and bass thumped from inside, making it look almost inviting. I parked behind a row of cars, mostly beat-up Hondas and Jeeps from our crowd, and walked up the creaky steps. The front door was propped open with a brick, and laughter spilled out. Inside, the foyer was dim, lit by a chandelier missing half its bulbs. The air smelled of pizza, weed, and that musty old house scent. About 20 people milled around. Jake's cousins from Newark, some Rutgers alumni I'd met at tailgates, and a few locals I didn't recognize. Alex, my man! Jake clapped me on the back, his breath already beer sour. He was in a Rutgers hoodie, hair buzzed short like always. Glad you made it. Emily's in the kitchen. Go say hi. I nodded, weaving through the crowd. The living room had a massive stone fireplace, cluttered with empty solo cups. Someone had hooked up a Spotify playlist to speakers, blasting hip-hop remixes. I spotted Mike Lawson, our old football quarterback, shotgunning a beer with his girlfriend Sarah. They waved me over, but I kept moving toward the kitchen. Emily was there, leaning against the granite counter, chatting with Lisa Nguyen, another high school friend who'd become a nurse in Philly. Emily looked even better than I remembered. Long auburn hair tied back, wearing jeans and a crop top that showed off her tattoo of a compass on her ribs. "Alex Thompson? No way," she said, her green eyes lighting up. We hugged, and it felt like no time had passed. We caught up over drinks, her failed freelance gigs, my internship rejections. The party buzzed around us, people dancing in the dining room, a group playing beer pong on a fold-out table. As the night wore on, things got livelier. By 10 p.m., the house was packed, maybe 30 people now. Jake cranked the music, and we migrated to the basement, which he'd turned into a makeshift lounge with string lights and old couches. Down there, the air was cooler, thicker with that earthy basement smell. We shared stories, Mike about his job at a car dealership, Lisa about crazy ER shifts. Emily and I ended up on a love seat, our knees touching, flirting like old times. That's when the first weird thing happened. We were midway through a game of Never Have I Ever when the lights flickered. Not just once, 3 times like a stutter. The music cut out for a second, then resumed. "Power surge," Jake yelled from upstairs. "Old wiring. Happens all the time." We laughed it off, but I noticed Emily shiver. "This place gives me the creeps," she whispered. "Remember those stories about the Hargroves?" I did. Digging into my memory, I recalled more details from a local history blog I'd read once. The Hargrove party in '95 wasn't just a fight. It was a disappearance. Edward Hargrove's wife, Margaret, vanished that night. Police found blood in the basement, but no body. Edward claimed she ran off with a lover, but neighbors heard screams. The case went cold, and Edward died alone in the house years later. Jake's uncle bought it cheap at auction. "Urban legend," I said, trying to sound confident. But the basement felt off now. The walls were paneled in dark wood, and there was a door at the far end, padlocked shut. "Storage," Jake had said earlier, "full of junk." Around midnight, people started pairing off or heading home. I was tipsy, not drunk, and Emily suggested we explore the upstairs. "For old time's sake," she said with a wink. We snuck away, climbing the grand staircase to the second floor. The hallways were narrow, lined with faded wallpaper peeling at the edges. Doors led to empty bedrooms, dust motes dancing in the moonlight, filtering through cracked windows. We found what must have been the master bedroom. A 4-poster bed frame, no mattress, and a vanity mirror covered in grime. Emily wiped a spot clean and posed dramatically. "Boo!" she laughed. But as I joined her, I saw something in the reflection, a shadow flitting behind us. I spun around. Nothing. "Trick of the light," I muttered. Downstairs, the party was winding down. Only a dozen of us left. Jake suggested a ghost story session in the living room. We gathered in a circle on the floor, passing a joint. Mike started with a lame campfire tale, but Lisa went next, sharing a real ER horror about a patient who died whispering about the house on Elm. Coincidence? Maybe. Then it was my turn. I was about to pass when the lights flickered again, this time longer, plunging us into darkness for a full 10 seconds. When they came back, Sarah screamed. Mike was gone. "He was right here," she said, panicked. We searched the room, calling his name. Jake checked the bathroom. Empty. "Probably outside smoking," he said, but his voice wavered. We fanned out. Emily and I took the kitchen. The back door was ajar, cool night air seeping in. "Mike?" I called into the yard. No answer. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "He's in the basement," I showed Emily. "Prank?" she asked, but her face was pale. We hurried downstairs. The basement was empty now, the couches abandoned. The padlocked door was unlocked. The chain hung loose. "Jake must have opened it," I said. We pushed inside. It was a storage room, crammed with boxes, old furniture, and cobwebs. In the corner, a trunk. Emily flipped it open. Inside, yellowed newspaper clippings about the Hargrove disappearance. Photos of Margaret smiling at that '95 party. One article mentioned witnesses hearing her scream from the basement. A thud echoed from above. We rushed back up. The living room was chaos, people yelling. Sarah was hysterical. Mike's phone was on the floor, screen cracked, a voice memo playing on loop. The walls, they're whispering. Get out! Panic set in. Jake tried to calm everyone. It's a joke, guys. Mike's messing with us. But then Lisa vanished. 1 minute she was by the fireplace, the next gone. We heard a faint cry from upstairs. Racing up, we found her shoe in the hallway, a streak of what looked like blood on the floor. Emily gripped my hand. Alex, we need to leave. Now. But the front door wouldn't budge. Locked from the outside. Windows jammed. Phones had no signal. Dead zone. Jake pounded on the door, screaming for help. The remaining group, me, Emily, Jake, Sarah, and 2 others, Tyler from Rutgers and Mia, a local, huddled in the foyer. That's when the whispers started. Faint at first, like wind through cracks, but words formed. Stay, party, forever. Emily whimpered. I felt a cold breath on my neck. We barricaded in the living room. Jake confessed. My uncle, he didn't die of a heart attack. He hung himself in the attic. Left a note about voices, about Margaret Hargrove trapping souls from that night. I thought it was bullshit, Tyler suggested the attic. Maybe there's a way out. We climbed the pull-down stairs, flashlights from phones cutting through dust. Up there, trunks of old party decorations, streamers from '95, confetti, and a noose still dangling. Sarah touched it and screamed as visions hit us all. Flashes of the Hargrove party, laughter turning to terror. Margaret, poisoned by Edward in a jealous rage, her spirit cursing the house to claim partiers forever. Souls trapped in the walls, whispering invitations. One by one, they took us. Tyler first, dragged into shadows. Mia next, her cries echoing. Sarah clawed at the walls until she vanished. Jake, Emily, and I fled to the basement. The storage room door slammed shut behind us. Whispers grew louder. Join us. Dance. In the trunk, I found Margaret's diary. Last entry. Edward's jealousy will doom us all. The house remembers. Emily sobbed. Jake banged on the door. Then silence. The door creaked open. Outside, the house was empty. Party over? We stumbled upstairs. Dawn light filtered in. Doors unlocked now. We ran to my car, peeling out. Police later found no trace of the others. Official report, missing persons, possible prank gone wrong. But Emily and I knew. We moved far, her to Seattle, me to Austin. Never spoke again. Years later, I drive by Elm Street sometimes. The house is for sale again. Lights on at night, whispers on the wind. Come party. Story 3. I never thought a simple house party could unravel my life like this, but looking back, the signs were there from the start. My name is Alex Thompson, and I'm from a small suburb in Portland, Oregon. I just started my junior year at the University of Oregon in Eugene, about an hour south, and like most broke college kids, I was desperate for cheap housing. That's how I ended up in that old Victorian on Elm Street, right on the edge of campus. It was a steal. $800 a month for a 3-bedroom shared with my roommates, Jake and Sarah. Jake was my buddy from high school, a laid-back engineering major who loved craft beer and video games. Sarah was his girlfriend, a psych student with a sharp wit and a thing for true crime podcasts. We found the place on Craigslist, and the landlord, an old guy named Mr. Hargrove, seemed eager to rent it out. He mentioned it had been empty for a while after some troubles, but we brushed it off. Who cares about history when the rent's low? The house itself was creepy in a charming way. Tall ceilings, creaky wooden floors, and a massive basement that smelled like damp earth and forgotten secrets. We moved in during the summer of 2024, right before classes kicked off. At first, it was great. We'd grill burgers in the backyard, binge-watch horror flicks in the living room, and joke about the weird noises at night. Probably just the wind, Jake would say, clinking his beer bottle against mine. But Sarah was the one who dug into the backstory. She was obsessed with local lore and spent hours on her laptop, scrolling through old newspaper archives from the Eugene Register Guard. One evening, as we were unpacking the last boxes, she called us over. "Guys, listen to this," she said, her eyes wide behind her glasses. Back in 1987, the house had belonged to a family named the Millers. They were your typical middle-class folks. Dad was a professor at the university, mom a nurse, and they had two teenage kids, Emily and Ryan. The Millers threw a big Halloween house party that year, inviting half the neighborhood. It was supposed to be fun. Costumes, punch bowls spiked with cheap vodka, and a fog machine in the living room. But something went horribly wrong. According to the articles, a fire broke out in the basement around midnight. No one knew how it started. Faulty wiring, maybe, or a knocked-over candle. 18 people died that night, trapped in the smoke and flames. The Millers survived, but they were never the same. Emily, the daughter, vanished a few weeks later, and rumors swirled that she'd started the fire on purpose, some kind of teenage rebellion gone nuclear. The house sat abandoned for years until it was renovated in the 2000s. Mr. Hargrove bought it cheap at auction. We laughed it off at first. "Cool, our place is haunted by party ghosts," Jake quipped, high-fiving me. But Sarah wasn't convinced. She found forum posts on Reddit's r/Eugene and r/paranormal from people who'd rented it before us. Strange shadows in the mirrors, whispers in the walls, and one guy claimed his girlfriend sleepwalked into the basement and woke up screaming about burning hands. We dismissed it as urban legends, the kind of stuff that gets exaggerated online. Still, it planted a seed of unease. I'd catch myself glancing over my shoulder in the empty hallways, or waking up in the middle of the night to what sounded like faint laughter echoing from downstairs. Fast forward to October 2025. Halloween was approaching, and we decided to throw our own house party to christen the place properly. What better way to exorcise the ghosts than with beer pong and bad costumes, I suggested. Jake was all in. He invited his frat buddies from Sigma Chi. Sarah reached out to her psych club friends, and I posted on the university's Facebook group, promising free kegs and a playlist of 80s hits to nod to the house's history. We themed it Retro Nightmare, encouraging everyone to dress as 80s icons or horror movie characters. The invites spread like wildfire. By the week before, we had over 50 RSVPs. We decorated the living room with fake cobwebs, jack-o'-lanterns, and strings of orange lights. In the basement, which we turned into a makeshift game room with a ping-pong table and some old couches, we set up a fog machine and red LED lights for that eerie vibe. "Just like the Millers," Sarah joked, but her voice had an edge to it. The night of the party, October 31st, started off perfect. The air was crisp with that Oregon fall chill, leaves crunching underfoot as guests arrived. I dressed as Freddy Krueger, complete with a striped sweater and a glove made from plastic knives. Jake went as Michael Myers, mask and all, and Sarah was a spot-on Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street. By 9 p.m., the house was packed, music thumping from the speakers, people laughing and spilling drinks on the floor. I mingled, flirting with a girl named Mia from my lit class, who showed up as a zombie cheerleader. Jake was manning the keg in the kitchen, doling out red Solo cups like a pro. Sarah flitted around, taking Polaroids and sticking them to the fridge. But around 10:30, things got weird. I was in the living room when the power flickered. Not a full outage, just a dip that made the lights buzz and the music skip. Everyone cheered, thinking it was part of the atmosphere. Then I noticed the fog from the basement machine creeping up the stairs, thicker than it should be, carrying a faint smell of smoke. Not the sweet, artificial kind, real smoke, like burning wood. I shrugged it off. Maybe someone was sneaking cigarettes down there. An hour later, Mia and I were chatting on the couch when she pointed to the mirror above the fireplace. "Did you see that?" she whispered. I looked, but it was just our reflections amid the crowd. "Swear I saw a girl in an 80s prom dress, staring back." I laughed, blaming the punch, but a chill ran down my spine. Sarah pulled me aside in the kitchen, her face pale. "Alex, I keep hearing whispers, like kids' voices saying, 'Join the party.'" Jake overheard and rolled his eyes. "You two are paranoid. It's the podcast messing with your heads." We tried to shake it off, but the party shifted. People started complaining about the cold spots, patches of air that felt like stepping into a freezer. One guy, a senior named Tyler, went to the basement for a beer pong rematch and came back upstairs looking spooked. "Dude, there's someone down there," he said, grabbing my arm. "A girl in a white dress, just standing in the corner. I thought she was a guest, but when I called out, she vanished." We all went down to check. Nothing but the fog swirling lazily under the red lights, the ping-pong table abandoned mid-game. By midnight, the crowd had thinned a bit, but the diehards were still going strong. That's when the real suspense kicked in. I was refilling the snack bowls when the music cut out completely. No flicker this time, just silence, broken by a low crackling sound from the basement. Then, screams. Not party screams, blood-curdling ones. We rushed downstairs, a group of us, phones out as flashlights. The fog was so thick we could barely see, and that smoke smell was overpowering now, stinging our eyes. In the center of the room, huddled on the floor, was Sarah. She was rocking back and forth, her Nancy costume torn at the sleeves. "They won't stop," she muttered. "The hands, burning hands pulling me down." Jake knelt beside her, but she shoved him away, her eyes wild. "It's Emily, she's here. She started the fire because her parents wouldn't let her go to the party. She locked the basement door and watched them burn." We thought she was having a breakdown, maybe spiked drinks or stress. But then the door at the top of the stairs slammed shut. We heard the lock click, an old bolt we never used. Panic set in. People banged on the door, yelling for help, but the music upstairs had restarted, drowning us out. The fog thickened and shapes began to form in it. Silhouettes of people dancing, laughing, their forms twisting unnaturally. I felt hands on my ankles, hot like embers, tugging me toward the floor. Mia screamed as something invisible yanked her hair. Tyler found an old window, half boarded up, and we pried it open, scrambling out into the backyard one by one. But not everyone made it. Two girls from the psych club, Lisa and Becca, got separated in the fog. We heard their cries, then a whoosh like flames igniting, and silence. When the police arrived, someone upstairs had finally noticed the commotion. They found the basement door unlocked. No sign of fire, just scorch marks on the walls that looked decades old. Lisa and Becca were gone, vanished like Emily Miller all those years ago. The investigation ruled it a prank gone wrong, maybe hallucinogens in the punch. But we knew better. Jake and Sarah broke up a week later. She moved back to Portland, claiming the whispers followed her. Jake transferred schools. Me? I stayed in Eugene, but I never set foot in that house again. Mr. Hargrove rented it out to new students, probably without mentioning the troubles. Sometimes late at night, I swear I hear faint party music in the distance, inviting me back. If you're ever in Eugene and see a cheap Victorian on Elm Street, do yourself a favor. Keep walking, because some parties never end, and once you're invited, you might not leave.